Listen to the story of the palm branches as told by John in his Gospel, chapter 12 and verses 12 to 16. The next day, the great crowd that had come for the festival heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. They took palm branches and went out to meet him. They shouted, "Hosanna! Blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessings on the King of Israel." Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, just as it is written, "Don't be afraid, O Israel. Look, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt." His disciples didn't understand these things at first. After he was glorified, they remembered that these things had been written about him, and that they had done these things to him.
It pleased the Lord, for the sake of his righteousness, to make his law great and glorious. But this is a people plundered and looted, all of them trapped in pits, or hidden away in prisons. They have become plunder, with no one to rescue them. They have been made loot, with no one to say, "Send them back." Which of you will listen to this, or pay close attention in time to come? Who handed Jacob over to become loot, and Israel to the plunderers? Was it not the Lord, against whom we have sinned? For they would not follow his ways. They did not obey his law. So he poured out on them his burning anger, the violence of war. It enveloped them in flames, yet they did not understand. It consumed them, but they did not take it to heart. Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from the words of my groaning? My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, and am not silent. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the praise of Israel. In you our fathers put their trust. They trusted, and you delivered them. They cried to you and were saved. In you they trusted and were not disappointed. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by men and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you, even at my mother's breast. From birth I was cast upon you. From my mother's womb you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help. Our gospel reading comes from Mark, chapter 14, verses 1 to 15. Now the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread was only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some sly way to arrest Jesus and kill him. But not during the feast, they said, or the people may riot. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages, and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them any time you want. But you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, What she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money. So he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when it was customary to sacrifice the Passover lamb, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go and make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" So he sent 2 of his disciples, telling them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large upper room, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there."
This is, in many ways, perhaps one of the strangest celebrations of the church year. We begin our service with palm branches and streamers and joyous celebration and procession. Within it all, the emotions and expectation, anticipation even, of, well, a little bit of what it would have been like for the people of Jesus' day. Yet we know that Christ's entry into Jerusalem led directly to his crucifixion. That knowledge is reflected in our service as well, with the reading of the Passion, or the part of the beginning of it. The time of the end is near. In amidst all of the celebration and expectation, there is this shadow that enters over it. With the reading, as we begin Holy Week, our journey becomes the way of the cross, until we stand at its very foot. If we allow ourselves to enter into that story through this week, we will find that we travel a road that leads us into shock and disappointment. If we allow ourselves, we'll find that we enter into the world of those followers of Jesus, something that they experienced some 2,000 years ago, a world that yearned for the coming of a new kingdom. Our lives begin to lean towards it. Yet we enter Holy Week as people who know the outcome. We've figured Jesus out. We know it all. Or do we? You see, it's difficult to imagine the change in mood that took place from that entry into Jerusalem to the time of the crucifixion. How could a crowd one day shout out, "Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest," and the very next pick up the chant, the terrible chant, "Crucify, crucify him"? Or is it so difficult to imagine? We all know how fickle a crowd can be. We all know how fickle we can be. Perhaps the heart of the matter is that we can actually so easily pick out our voices in the crowd. And there are many voices in this crowd. There are many points of view. There are those who know Jesus intimately, those faithful followers. They've heard the rumours about their leader, and they're confused and frightened by what they hear. They don't know what to believe. And what's more, truth be known, they're afraid for their own lives. And then there are those who look to Jesus as their king, a Messiah who will magically free them from the tyranny of Rome, one who will make it heaven on earth. What hope begins to spring within their hearts. And then there are those who are looking for a zealot, one who will lead them into battle. Not a man on a donkey for them, but a warrior on a white steed leading the charge. how disappointed they are going to be. Many know Jesus as a worker of miracles. For him and for them, he is a placebo in an otherwise deplorable situation. He is for them their last hope. So the entire crowd, no matter who they are or where they come from, they all get caught up in the excitement of the moment. And as can happen, mob mentality begins to take over. I look at the people in the story and I realise that actually I could be any one of them. I'd like to think that I'm like that woman who lavishly shared her costly gift on Jesus. There he was in Bethany, sitting at the table when she came in with that alabaster jar of perfumed ointment. And she didn't just pour out a little. She broke open the jar and poured out the whole lavish contents. The fragrance would have filled the house. Everybody would have been caught with a because we know how expensive that was. That's the person we might like to think that we are. Those who are so extravagant with our love and care and our giving. I mean, I don't want to think that I could be Judas, sitting at a table with him, sharing in that Passover meal, knowing the terrible deed that I was about to participate in. It would be terrible to even consider that it all rests on me. I mean, what on earth was Judas thinking? Was Jesus really such a disappointment? Was it not happening fast enough or in the way he thought it should? Was he only in it for what he could get out of it? And when it didn't happen the way he thought it should, did he just simply opt out? Do I simply opt out when life gets difficult or when things are not going my way? And then there is Peter. I feel such ambiguity in seeing myself as Peter. I mean, Jesus had just given him that name. He was Simon beforehand, but Jesus chose to call him Peter, the rock, the strong one on whom the church would be built. And where is Peter? Where's the rock, the strong one, the dependable one when Jesus needs him? Where am I when Jesus needs me? Looking for a safe place to hide? Following at a safe distance? In the heat of the moment, I can be brave enough. I might even be impulsive enough to grab that sword and attack the weakest person I can find, the one who isn't likely to fight back. But in the end, I desert him. I don't want to take the risk of being found out to be a follower of Christ, and so I deny that I know him. And surely I'm not Pilate. My decisions don't come from a desire for power. I base them on truth. Or do I? Is Jesus the king in my life? Or am I willing to allow myself to be swayed by the crowd? Am I moved by peer pressure? Do I give in to the demands of the world I live in? The trouble is, God, I can understand them all. I can understand why I know each one of them so well. And yet there are times when I, like you, will question, when? When have I abandoned you? When have I handed you over to authorities? When have I followed from a distance so that I won't be noticed? Do I really have to be forced to carry your cross? Do I become just a part of the mob, unwilling to stand out in the crowd? Am I really afraid of being noticed? The amazing thing is, this story we know so well invites us in. It invites us in. But the way of the cross is the way of risk and suffering. We don't line up for that privilege, but we all of us, eventually carry some of the world's guilt, pain, and suffering. We don't always deserve it. Some of the really great people, the Martin Luther Kings, the Mother Teresas of our world, actually seek out opportunities to carry a cross of suffering and self-sacrifice in order to make a difference in our world. The kids learnt about acts of kindness, and acts of kindness can give a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling within us, and it's a good thing to do. But sometimes acts of kindness can mean walking a path that others fear to trod. Acts of kindness can also mean standing up for truth in the face of so much negativity and put down. An act of kindness may be loving the unlovable. As we enter the Easter story, before we can experience the joy of resurrection, we need to enter the dark shadows that are to come. We need to discover ourselves in the story. So through the things that are offered this week, through Maundy Thursday, through Good Friday, through times of quietness and reflection, may this truly be a holy week. And may we, with the centurion, end up standing at the foot of the cross and see that truly this Jesus we follow is God's Son. And may we never be the same again. Amen.